It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Lakers podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin. I'm joined by no one as of right now. Actually, the way this is going to work, earlier today, I recorded a conversation with George Sedano of ESPN. He does stuff on The Jump. He has a show out here in LA that's also really good. And as we joked about at the end of our conversation, basically, if you've watched basketball on ESPN this season, he's probably shown up on your TV screen more often than he hasn't been on it. So he's having an incredible year. It was really fun catching up with him. The way this is going to work, though, I am going to respond or react to the Lakers smacking down on the Utah Jazz to the extent that LeBron was able to give his shoes up and dance around on the court without wearing shoes, as Kyle Kuzma was blocking everything in the vicinity. That's an actual sentence that summarized a stretch of the game that we were able to watch last night. They beat the Utah Jazz, I believe it was 121-96. They give up the exact same amount of points as they gave up in Denver the night before. And look, yes, Denver has not met expectations this year. Utah has not met expectations this year. Utah was playing without Mike Conley on the night, though, you know, I think Lakers fans would counter with they have missed Avery Bradley for the last 11 games. So, yes, those teams have not played as well as we envisioned or the people who believed in them envisioned they would at the beginning of this season. But that doesn't change the fact that going into Denver and then going into Utah on consecutive nights, that's any easier a feat. And in both of the games, the Denver game, I talked to my buddy Adam. We text back and forth, and he was telling me, you know, the Lakers just kind of cruised to victory in Denver, and that game was it never felt entirely close as the score might indicate. They only won by 9 points in that game, and then in last night's game they smoked Utah. They win by 25 there. They give them a 25 piece, and like I said, we're so comfortable in winning that LeBron was able to give his shoes to a couple fans. It was great. It was a good all-around win. I thought, especially defensively, like sometimes, like when in a 105-96 win, you could kind of understand the defense playing as focused and as intense as it did in Denver a couple nights ago. But to score as easily as the Lakers were scoring on Utah, and also continue to buckle down on the opponent the way that they did, that really shows something. They came into this game with their ears pinned back, but for a quick stretch at the very beginning of the game where Utah hit a few shots in a row and jumped out to a quick, 5-ish point lead. Other than that, the Lakers dominated this thing from that point forward to the finish line. They got their season high in steals tonight. This is their first 10-game road winning streak since the year 2000. So, when you're compiling history the way that the Lakers are, it just and given, by the way, the kind of history that the Lakers have, like, it makes this season all the more special. They improved to 19-3. I kind of want to go down the list here of things that I noticed over the course of the game. The first thing that really jumped off the screen was how few answers Utah seemed to have for Anthony Davis, and that's even while they employed Rudy Gobert. In the game when the Lakers beat Utah earlier this season, Davis slid down to the 5 and was able to take advantage of Gobert in those minutes. But it really didn't matter if Davis was at the 5 or at the 4. They just didn't have any answer for him. He finishes the game with 26 points, 6 boards, a steal, assist, and 3 blocks, and shot 9 of 11 from the floor and 8 of 9 from the free throw line. That's, I mean, when you consider he didn't play hardly in the fourth quarter, I believe he played, how many minutes is he? Yeah, 26 minutes. When you consider how few minutes he played, that's a dominant scoring line, and it felt even more dominant as it was happening. He was extra special on the defensive end and probably made one of the better plays you're going to see made this year. He closed out hard on Bojan Bogdanovic. Went, kind of flew by him, but was able to regather himself and block Bogdanovic from behind. And now, granted, he was out of bounds when he did it, so maybe that should have come back or whatever. But it was such an insane play that the referee, I'm sure, was just like, we just saw something insane and didn't really think of where Davis's foot might have been when he made contact with that shot. So that was pretty special. LeBron finishes a game with 20 points, 12 assists, 9 of 21 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3-point range, but a plus 14 on the night. It felt like that when LeBron was out there on the court, like it has for most of this year. The Lakers just seemed to roll significantly better. But aside from the stars, I do want to give credit here to the bench because Kyle Kuzma finishes the game with a plus 25, Dwight Howard plus 19, Rajon Rondo plus 25, Alex Caruso plus 14. Like, those guys, as special as Davis and LeBron are, and now they, because of how great they are going to allow other guys to kind of slip into roles that make sense for them. But even while Davis and LeBron were special tonight, those are insane numbers. And Kuzma does that without scoring the ball all that well. He went 4 of 11 from 3-point or from the field, 3 of 5 from 3-point range, 2 of those being heaves at the end of the game. Rajon Rondo 5 of 12 from the line, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. Caruso 2 of 4, 1 of 2. Dwight Howard hit a 3-pointer. He now has as many free 3-pointers on the year as Ben Simmons. So congratulations to him for that. But they were just, especially defensively, and Kuzma being good defensively was pretty wild to watch. But you watch those guys rotate, and Alex Caruso especially, you watch him rotate, and he just, there's just something about the way that he approaches defense, especially off of the ball, that makes the Lakers that much better when he's out there on the court. And it leaks into the rest of everybody else's approach to the game. KCP plus 14. Now, again, the Lakers blew out Utah, so some of these are going to be inflated by that. But when you see the difference in the game, that obviously being how well the bench performed, and it isn't by way just of their scoring. While, by the way, the Lakers score 121 points, like that was one of the better games the Lakers are going to play from start to finish. And these are 2 of the more impressive wins that anybody in the league are going to have back to back. So really fun stuff here. Just as fun as the conversation that's going to be coming on the other side of this quick break. So hang tight for that.
Hi, I'm Gavin Shaw.
And I'm Alex Wolf, and we're the hosts of Locked On Knicks. Gavin, you're 6'3" and about 90 pounds soaking wet. How do you shop for clothes?
Well, Alex, it's always been a challenge. That is, until I discovered Indochino. Indochino gives you a spectacular in-store fitting, or you can feel free to take your measurements at home using their handy online guide. They allow you to personalize every aspect of your suit, shirt, jacket, or chinos to your precise measurements. And you can choose everything from your lapel to a custom monogram.
Best of all, your custom-tailored garments only take 2 weeks to show up on your doorstep. But don't take our word for it. Knicks Rookie of the Year contender RJ Barrett was wearing Indochino on draft night when he turned heads with that eye-catching pink suit. If you want to look like RJ, he even has his own custom line of fabrics and linings available for purchase right now.
Start your style upgrade now with $30 off your total purchase of $399 or more at Indochino.com when entering Locked On at checkout. Plus, shipping is free.
That's Indochino.com, promo code Locked On for $30 off your total purchase of $399 or more. An incredible deal for made-to-measure clothing.
You really have no excuse anymore to wear clothing that doesn't fit.
Your team.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Bucks.
Locked On Raptors.
Locked On Nuggets podcast.
Every day.
On Monday.
It's Taco Tuesday!
On this Wednesday.
Thursday looks great. Starting this Friday.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
The leading storyline to watch for.
A couple things from the preseason have kind of piqued my interest even more in terms of how good this team can be.
Draymond spoke with the media after the game, and I thought he had the right outlook when it comes to this.
Yeah, that, means precisely nothing in the grand scheme of winning a championship, I guess, but...
You need to be Locked On.
That is LOCKEDON.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Ow!
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, we are joined now by friend of the show, George Sedano of ESPN. You can catch him on The Jump. He has the George Sedano Show out here. He has been incredibly nice and incredibly giving with the show in general. George, thanks for hopping on. And how was your holiday?
Holiday was good, man. It was kind of wild. I had the Lakers-Pelicans game on Wednesday night in New Orleans, and then 3 hours of sleep maybe, and jumped on a flight back to LA to celebrate with the family, and luckily was able to sneak in a nap before people actually arrived at the house. So, but it was fun. It was great. It was actually nice to have a few days off, to be honest with you.
Yeah. We got together, Harrison and Pete and me all kind of got together for lunch one day, and we were just marveling at, we have free time?
Right.
What is that?
Right.
What's going on here? So it's nice to be able to kind of turn off the Jets a little bit. The way today's show is going to go is we're just going to look back. The Lakers are about they're 21 games into the season, but just about past the 25% mark. The quarterly report is basically what we're going to talk about here. I kind of want to start with where we left off, or with yesterday's show. The Lakers are coming off of one of the bigger wins that they're probably going to have all year, beating Denver in Denver, even though, Denver hasn't been as good as maybe people thought they were going to be. There have been a few teams in the Western Conference. Utah's another one who the Lakers are getting ready to play as well. But where would you rate that win, the Lakers win last night, compared to the more impressive wins that other title contenders have had?
I think that's a good win. I mean, you're talking about a team that historically has won, almost 70% of their games or whatnot at home in Denver, regardless of how good they are in a given season. So I think that's a tremendous win, particularly, I think, because everyone has talked about how the schedule is going to toughen up now. They have, I believe, either the toughest or second toughest schedule in the month of December. So the Lakers are going to be tested in a way that maybe they weren't necessarily as tested in that first month of the season. Now, I also think some of that was overblown too, because they played teams early on that were overachieving. Phoenix, for example, being one of them. Miami was one that was overachieving, and the Lakers won those games. And I don't feel like they're getting enough credit for winning those type of games. And look, Phoenix may have come back down to earth, but Miami is 15-5.
Yeah.
So that's a good win. So I think that even their early schedule, which was maligned, was tougher than I think most people give them credit for. And they've had emotional games. I just talked about having done the sidelines for the game in New Orleans.
Yeah.
That thing, look, it wasn't LeBron's return to Cleveland. Let's not get it twisted. It wasn't anywhere near that. And I don't even think it was LeBron's return to Miami, but they were definitely giving it to him. There is no doubt about it. They were there was an energy in the building. It felt like a playoff game, and I thought that the Lakers handled that game really well, especially considering how hot New Orleans was, particularly from three in the first half of that game. So I think the Lakers have been fantastic. If I were grading them, I would give them an A+ right now.
Yeah.
I thought that going into the season in the summer, I said the first 20 games have a lot of winnable games. If you go 15-5 in that stretch, I felt like that was deserving of an A. I mean, they went 17-3 in that stretch. So they could not. I mean, look, clearly they could have gone 20-0, but I think realistically that's as great a start as anyone could have envisioned, and I think most people didn't even envision that.
Yeah, I definitely didn't. I was along the same lines. 14-6 or 15-5 was kind of my hope there, and they did completely outshine expectations. I kind of want to go back to the stuff you kind of hit on there regarding strength of schedule, because it is a very fluid thing that you're trying to analyze. And, you talked about Phoenix. Well, Phoenix fell off a cliff when Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines got hurt. Mm-hmm. And the Lakers beat them when those guys were still there and healthy, and they were playing the best basketball that they're probably going to play all year. And you talked about the game that the Lakers, that you witnessed firsthand in New Orleans, and that's probably one of the best games that team is going to play all year. And the Lakers, handled it, albeit it was a lot closer than I think anybody wanted to see happen. I think Lakers fans kind of wanted them to go in there and punch New Orleans in the mouth, but that was probably always unrealistic to expect. And then as has become custom, I was in charge of the recap that night, and I wrote like 2 or 3 separate recaps because that game looked like it was going to play out 2 or 3 different ways over the course of it. And I think when you take all of this, everything into account, at the end of the year, most teams are going to have similarly tough schedules. It's just this really fluid, moving target that I don't think we quite understand how to analyze that right now.
Oh, look, I'm with you wholeheartedly. It absolutely changes all the time. And here's what I would say to you. To use like a movie reference. You watch Star Wars, I would imagine, at some point. Okay, like when those when like the TIE fighters, the Darth Vader's crew are flying and they're trying to lock in on a target that's they've had the resistance
graphic for like
right, yeah. It's that little green, right? That little green kind of periscope looking thing that's like floating until finally it locks on to hit someone from the Republic or the Resistance, depending on which movie you're watching. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what strength of schedule is. Like that to me is what it is. Like it's going to fluctuate over time. And as we talked about, December is going to be brutal for the Lakers from a schedule standpoint. So, I didn't look up exactly how many games they have, but let's just say for argument's sake, they have 15 games. If they can go 9-6, 10-5 in that stretch, that's a tremendous stretch of basketball for the Lakers. The other thing that I think that the Lakers should get credit for is bad teams. They've beaten a lot of sub-500 teams. I know you should say, well, you're supposed to beat those teams. But yeah, look at some of these nights in the NBA and how many of these sub-500 teams get up for the big teams because it's their game 7 night in and night out. And the Lakers certainly have that bullseye on their target. And they haven't lost to any sub-500 teams. Yeah. The teams they've lost to have been good teams, right? The Clippers, the Raptors, and the Mavericks. All those teams are playoff teams. The Clippers are probably going to be the team that they're going to have to face to get to the NBA Finals. The Mavericks are a team they could potentially see in the playoffs too. And the Raptors are clearly amongst the elite in the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, you look at the rest of the West. Denver, who they played last night, has lost to 3 sub-500 teams. They feel like every single night they're playing, on fire because they're trailing at half in most of their games. The Clippers have had some bad losses already this season. They've had 3 losses to sub-500 teams. Dallas has had a couple of losses to sub-500 teams. Houston is probably the only other team. I looked at their record earlier today. They only have 1 loss to a sub-500 team. So the Lakers are doing what they're supposed to do and then dominating in the games that they're supposed to as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the thing that Lakers fans should probably walk away from the season to this point, more than any other bit of analysis that you can find, is when the Lakers really want to get up, they have, for the most part, I think the Clippers game was the only one where they wanted to get up. And even in that game, they started the game out. I think it was like they went on a 12-2 run right from the get-go. So like when they've actually really wanted to get up and when it's come time to really flip that switch, the Lakers have shown a proclivity to be able to flip that switch and make bad teams, the sub 500 teams, look really bad, look like a JV team out there. And then even the good teams, they've made, with their defense, they've made some of those good teams even look, pretty mediocre. And that's kind of all you wanted to see from the beginning of the season. I'm completely with you in saying that the NBA probably, like the competition, probably wanted to see a little less from the Lakers, and Lakers fans should be pretty happy with how the beginning of the year went.
No question about it. And here's the thing. You mentioned defense, and I know there's been a little slippage here over the last couple of weeks, but I think part of that is Kuzma being reinserted into the lineup. I also think it's
Rondo.
LeBron taking the gas, taking the foot off the gas a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. He was clearly motivated to defend early on, and there's been some subtle, changes there. Rondo, I think I heard you mention Rondo, right? Rondo being inserted into the lineup. I think those things are there. But Richard Jefferson said something really smart on the jump yesterday when they were discussing the slippage of the Lakers on defense. And he said, they now know they can defend, though. And Frank Vogel very early on in training camp made it a point to assert themselves on that side of the ball. And what Richard was saying is once you know you can defend, and once you know that you've got the personnel that you can throw out there to defend most situations, then you can pull back a little bit and kind of just, I guess, toy with some stuff, right? Particularly on offense and defense, and kind of see if you can find some other combinations once you know you've got some stuff that you can lock into. For example, right? Like the Caruso minutes with LeBron and AD are absurd. I think it's like a plus 40 net rating or something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, Caruso has been I've been championing Caruso since last season, and I think he should – if Avery Bradley, who they've been great with, don't get me wrong, their 5-man starting unit is a plus 6.5 net rating, which is fantastic. But if Avery Bradley were to go down for a longer stretch of time, like clearly at this stage, everyone should absolutely feel comfortable with Alex Caruso being out there. He doesn't even need to score because he's a threat from the outside, but just what he brings defensively from just his smarts and his passing ability and his shooting ability is more than enough. That's a great find by Jesse Buss and Joey Buss and company with Caruso. And it's something that I know we touched on last year, but now this year, everyone's really starting to notice.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest praise that you can give Caruso is that he has convinced LeBron to trust him. Like LeBron doesn't trust players with Alex Caruso's background very easily. And yeah, I mean, it's impossible. The noise is loud enough, both mathematically and just in terms of the eye test while you're watching those guys play together, that LeBron has even said he's probably one of our better, or Vogel said that he's probably one of the better two-way players on the roster. And LeBron said that, I think he gave the quote that he's like, he does everything for us. And
he said it to Trudell a couple nights ago.
Yeah, you don't hear him say that much about third-year undrafted players from the G League. That doesn't.
No, look, Caruso is playing the role that Mario Chalmers played in Miami, like that, with maybe a little less opportunities to shoot the ball right now. But I do think that those opportunities can come, right? Like between Avery Bradley and Caruso, that's the role. The role and I always felt like that's the best role for a point guard on a LeBron team. We've talked about this for years now, you and I, where just give me a guy who can defend and shoot threes. And if you can do that, give me a 3-and-D guy at the point guard and like a decent passer, clearly. Just give me a guy who can do those three things, and you're going to be fine playing with LeBron at that position.
Yep. All right, let's take a quick second here. When we come back, I want to keep talking about the Lakers and then maybe expand it out to the rest of the NBA. I do kind of want to touch on the matchups that maybe you would prefer to see come playoff time, and maybe the league would prefer to see come playoff time. So plenty of stuff to continue to get to. We'll get to that here in a bit. All right, so I saw that you took a little bit of flack yesterday on Twitter for basically saying that you want to see the Lakers and Clippers in a playoff series. Let's just fast forward to that. I don't even think he went that far. I don't think that's that shouldn't be a take that anybody has a problem with.
Oh my God. There's one guy. It's so funny. Like, if you go back on my Twitter, it's pretty hilarious. Like, this guy who like came at me. Like, he was like, come at me, bro. Like, that was basically his position. It felt like he had way too many drinks or something last night to get that angry over something that seems so fairly obvious. Like, yeah, okay, I'd like to see the two best teams in the Western Conference play in the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, strange. I know. So he like turned it into this thing that I like, that's not objective reporting. And I said, first of all, on Twitter, I'm not reporting anything unless I'm specifically saying, hey, this is a report. Like, if not, it is either opinion or I'm just screwing around, right? Like, what? And clearly that was an opinion. So the funny thing was, he said to me, he tweeted at me, he's like, you've met your, basically some form of, you've met your match now because I'm a mass comm major with a law degree. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, yeah. Well, here are the standings. They're the top two teams. You can say that you don't agree with them being the top two teams, but my eyes say they are. Okay. So let's just move on. And he was going. And then did I ham it up a little bit by quote tweeting it and allowing Lakers Twitter to feast on him for a little bit?
I enjoyed
it. But he just annoyed me. That was it. And I don't do that kind of flex very often because it just creates way too much of a mess of my mentions. And sometimes I just like to peruse Twitter and just read and occasionally respond to you or people that people I know and just get in on the jokes and have some fun. But I can only do that if I do, the occasional @ reply. But even those get screwed up from time to time too. People they don't get the conversation. To use a Levitard phrase, you don't get the show.
Yeah.
But it's, it turned into this thing, and I just had some fun with it. I was like, you know what, dude? If you're gonna come at me with your law degree and your mass comm degree, and try to sit here and espouse the virtues of journalism with a guy who's been working in the business for 20 years. Okay, let's have some fun with this crap.
Well, that was my thing, was that you would think a mass comm degree would have him be able to understand what a report is. What I need you to do from now on, though, is just throw sources at the beginning of your opinion tweets, just to see how that goes. Sources. Caldo is good in this time of year. That would be great. I'd be all about it.
Just to annoy that guy and tag him. Just tag him on every tweet basically from now on. It'd be funny.
So let's talk about that matchup though. That's probably the two teams that the NBA wants to meet the most come playoff time, right?
Oh, I don't think there's any question, especially if you're Turner, right? If you're TNT, you need those two teams in the conference finals. You don't want them meeting before.
Yeah. Well, I actually think it would be interesting either way, because I do believe that this is going to be a matchup that we're going to get multiple years out of, unless, injuries or whatever happen. But if they don't meet this year in the Western Conference Finals and then they meet next year in the Western Conference Finals with improved stakes, having one of those teams wouldn't be moving on, I think that'd be okay just for longevity's sake. But how do you see that series playing out?
Man, it would be fascinating because the Clippers I think they're deeper, and I think I would say they've got a more reliable third scoring option at the moment, right? Yeah. Kyle Kuzma, and it's early, right? So I'm not trying to douse water on everyone. But look, I think that there's
lost.
There's some times where it just doesn't look right. Yeah. Now, granted, the in a very small sample size of I think 75 to 80 minutes with him and AD and LeBron on the floor, it's had good results, right? But I just think individually, when we're looking at him, I think sometimes the numbers don't tell you what your eyes can see about an individual player. And I think you hit the nail on the head. He looks lost at times. I do believe, though, that once they start playing more in the playoffs with AD at the 5 and Kuzma's playing kind of that stretch 4 spot, I do think that is a more natural fit for him potentially. But you made a good point yesterday, which I kind of joked about, which is they need to stop isolating him. Like, that is not a thing. I think that's good for him. It is a fun adventure, though, to watch as a viewer, but I don't think necessarily that is something that is a strength for him.
Yeah, he gets in those isolation moments, and it's like that gif of Carlton firing away.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think that I trust Lou Will more as a third scoring option right now. I think that's fair to say. And look, I think both teams are deep. I just would give a slight edge to the Clippers. And I think you and I have talked about this off air, is that I'm a big believer that whichever one of those two teams, which I think both will be in the mix for, whichever one lands Andre Iguodala, I think could potentially swing the balance of power. I think between the two teams, because as well as I think Rondo has played at times on offense, I mean shooting 48% from three, but we saw some of that last year, right? Like let's not get crazy and carried away in small samples too, with 30 some odd threes or whatever he's taken. Yeah. But Andre still allows you to have a guy who can initiate offense. And have a top-notch defender out there. And I think that if you're the Lakers, if you could have another perimeter guy you can throw at Kawhi and Paul George, that only helps things. Yeah. Meanwhile, if he goes to the Clippers, man, that's going to make LeBron's life tougher. Not that I think anyone can stifle LeBron by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think we've ever seen a team that can throw three guys potentially at him. So I think Andre does swing the balance of power. But the clear, obvious thing right now, as the Clippers are currently constituted, they have no answer for Anthony Davis. Yeah. I mean, Montrezl Harrell on offense potentially can at least keep him honest because he's just so crafty around the rim. But I just feel like Anthony Davis is a mismatch with Harrell all day, every day. And no disrespect to our boy Zoo, they've been great with him on the floor defensively, but I also don't think that he's a solution. Could he be something that the Clippers could throw at them for a few minutes here and there to kind of change the pace a little bit? Maybe, but I don't think that that's a solution. So I am curious to see what the buyout market looks like for those teams, because the Clippers will need their shooting in a series against the Lakers for them to be successful.
Yeah, Zubats feels like one of those players Shaq would have fouled out in his prime, like in 3 minutes.
No question. Yes. Yeah. If he did it to like the Rick Smiths of the world, who, as we look back, were really talented centers in an era of great centers, what would he do to Zoo? Yeah, I mean, good Lord.
I do want to. What I find interesting, the Iguodala thing is probably, I don't know how that's going to play out. Memphis is apparently dead set on not paying him $17 million to go play basketball somewhere else. So we'll see how that actually plays out. But the thing, my concern facing the Clippers is they turn the ball over a ton. And I think it's because they don't have a natural creator on that team. Like Kawhi can create, Paul George can create, Lou Williams can create, but he's more of your shooting combo guard anyway. And Patrick Beverley, he's not, that's not the kind of point guard he is either. And I do kind of wonder if you get into a playoffs series, whether the Lakers could take advantage of those turnovers and get out and for some easy transition buckets. But those usually tend to slow down anyway come playoff time anyway. It's one of the more fascinating series that you could theorize at this point of the year that we've seen in a while. We haven't seen a series like this closely matched that you can try to get yourself up for, come June.
Oh, listen, I agree. I look, both teams are as elite as you can get on the defensive side when they want to play defense, right? Like, I think that there's that. I just think that you have, the biggest difference to me, the only thing that could swing it is the Clippers bench, right? And it's crazy to call it their bench because those guys play 30-something minutes.
Yeah, they should be starters, but they come off the bench.
But you know what I'm saying when I say those two guys, but particularly Lou, right? Because Lou Williams, when he gets hot, I did two of their games a couple of weeks ago. I did their Celtics and Rockets game for ESPN, And Lou was incredible in the second half in both of those games. I want to say in the Rockets game, he had all 26 points in the second half. So he just can get hot in a way that I think that no one on the Lakers can get hot right now. But man, like Charles said it last night. Barkley said it last night. We're going to find out what Anthony Davis is made of if those two teams play in a series, because he should be the key to the Lakers winning that particular series.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right, my last question before we get you out of here. You have now been in LA and been able to watch the Lakers up close during a good season thus far, and then obviously last year was less good, we'll say. How have you felt about the city as the way that, given the way that they have welcomed this team? I think that's been one of the more fun things to watch. One of the fun dynamics to watch is this city kind of come behind this team that isn't your traditional. Here's a bunch of guys that we've cared about for a long time as Lakers kind of team.
Oh man, listen, the first thing that stands out is just everyone is just more relaxed, right? Like
except that dude, except that one guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not a Laker fan, so
yeah.
I'm just talking about like Laker fans. Like everything is just more relaxed. People are like, wow, we've got a great team again. It's been so long. It's just nice to enjoy it. Got to enjoy the ride. Understanding that there's going to be ups and downs and there's going to be some frustrations at times or whatnot. But I just think everyone has just a better perspective, right? Because it feels like things are back on their natural axis again after the last 6 or 7 years. So because of that, I think that that's the most noticeable thing. And because of that, I think that people have now embraced LeBron way more, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that last year was just weird. It was just a weird start for him. Like it was a weird season. He was kind of like, I'm coming here because I want to be here because I want to be in LA and I want to play for this franchise. And I feel like we can get this thing pieced together, but this is going to be kind of a weird year. I'm not going to tell you that it's a weird year, but it's very obvious that it's going to be a weird year. Then he got hurt for the first time. Like everything was strange. And it was just, the Kobe LeBron people were at each other's throats. Yeah. There's a lot less of that. Though it's funny because at the current pace, LeBron can pass Kobe on the all-time scoring list, but it's going to happen potentially in Boston, which I feel like is the best case scenario for LeBron, that it would happen in Boston on the road against that team. Not at Staples Center, right? Like, I just feel like all of that is like, yeah, we can celebrate LeBron because we hate the Celtics, even though he's passing Kobe. So I just feel like everything is kind of just, again, working itself out in a way where everyone seems to be pulling the rope in the same direction, where there was just so much infighting last year about whether it was the way the team played, the young guys being traded, what their ceiling was, and everyone hating the fact that, not everyone, but people fighting amongst themselves about whether they should trade the guys, whether they should keep the guys, and LeBron and Kobe. There was so many storylines within this season that ended up becoming awful. That it just felt like it was a lot, right? A lot to endure, a lot to just live through. And this season just seems like we're sailing
so much more pleasant.
Sailing on calm seas, right? Like that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to watch. I kind of hope that Kobe or LeBron passes Kobe at Staples Center and Kobe goes to the game.
It would be cool if that happened too, but I do think that the Boston
chaos.
Thing makes sense. Well, there's that. You are an anarchist, but. I do think that just the Boston thing would be great, for LeBron on a number of levels. But here's all you need to know about this season. We are nitpicking, you and I, about Kuzma looking quote-unquote lost, Rondo and his defense, right? KCP, like at the beginning of the season, now people are starting to come around at him a little bit. Well, probably not, but you get my point. Like we are nitpicking on stuff, and that's when you know things are good.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to listen to you guys talk about it on the jump. Again, if you guys want to check out more of George's content, he has a show out here in LA. He appears on the jump. Just about any time you're watching anything associated with the Lakers, George is probably going to pop up at some point.
Well, it is funny. I've gotten all the big, to this point, outside of Friday. I'm not going to be in Portland because I'm off this week. But that's the first Lakers or Clippers game on ESPN that I have not been on so far this season. I'm traveling next week to Toronto for Kawhi's return game. And I'm not doing the Laker game. Israel Gutierrez is doing the Lakers Heat game next Friday, which now got moved up, by the way, to a 4:00 start for people that are not familiar, 4:00 Pacific. But the Jump is going to be there on that Friday, and we're doing we did a Lakers All Access a while back. Now we're doing like a Heat All Access, but we're going to be highlighting that particular matchup as well. So it's going to be a big day next Friday. So, yes, you're right. If it involves the NBA and the Lakers or the Clippers, I've probably been involved in 90% of it this year.
Yeah, at least once an evening, Jen will be like, God, does he ever just sit down? Like, is he?
No. But I love it. I love it.
We love seeing you out there as much as it. You're really good at your job. That's why I appreciate you coming on today and as often as you've been willing to come on the show. So we'll have to do this again sometime soon.
You got it, bud. Anytime. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Lakers podcast. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We'll be back at it again tomorrow with Pete. So have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
No Division I college basketball team has more NCAA national championships than, did you say UCLA? Yeah, it's UCLA. But how does this program get back to the glitz and glamour of yesteryear? Well, I invite you to check out Locked On Bruins with myself, Brian Fenley, to find out. I am also a co-host for UCLA's Learfield IMG College Radio Network and am a national anchor for Fox Sports Radio. I say all of this to tell you that this UCLA broadcasting stuff, this is not some hobby for me. This is a lifestyle. And my ultimate goal on this podcast is to show you how first-year UCLA head coach Mick Cronin is hoping to restore this program back to the glory days and back where it belongs among the national powers in college basketball. So make this a daily part of your day with Locked On Bruins.
The Locked On Podcast Network has the ultimate NBA podcast starting 5. Starting at podcast number 1 is your favorite team's daily podcast from a local expert. Starting at the podcast number 2 is Locked On NBA, your daily 30-minute look at what happened the night before and what's upcoming. At the number 3 spot is Locked On Fantasy Basketball, the number 1 fantasy basketball show in the land. And the podcast number 4 position is Rejecting the Screen with Noah Kozlov and Adam Stanko. And finally, the big men in the middle, the unequaled Hollinger and Duncan NBA show with former NBA executive and analytics godfather John Hollinger. It's Locked On Podcast Network's NBA Podcast Ultimate Starting 5. Follow all 5 on your favorite podcast provider.